Hang with me. Let's go to The Observer. This is a very interesting piece from Rory Smith. Given there's only 8 days left of this transfer window, this piece, Myth and Mystery of Indy Kaila, transfer window's real winner. I, for one, am very, very intrigued by this gentleman or woman. We don't know. Jonathan, who is Indy Kaila?
Well, it's a funny one for me. I actually know Indy a little bit. We've met. It is a gentleman. Knowing Indy, he wouldn't want me to disclose the circumstances of meeting and so on, but we exchanged messages. I mean, yes, he's a real person. He is a... I mean, the best way to describe him is he's a transfer gossip sort of connoisseur who's turned into an actual breaker of stories. But, you know, he started as a guy, I think he says it in Rory's piece, because I know Rory's spoken to him, who used to love football gossip, looked at CFAX all the time, Club Call for those who are old enough to remember it.
Giving his age away.
Like we do. Well, yeah, our generation maybe. But somebody that was always loved transfers, and then when social media took off, started trying to have a go at doing it himself, and has built contacts, has had an amazing transfer window because, as Rory sort of notes, this has been the one where, you know, he's had the royal blessing from David Ornstein, who credited him for breaking news. He's been on the Isak story day after day after day and built loads and loads of followers. And what he's really good at, I think, is not just getting stories, and you know how hard it is, Darmish, not just to break a story, but then to keep feeding the public appetite for more and more details. And I think that's what he's really good at. He does it with a lot of fun. And I think the tweet of the whole window was when Hugo Ekitike chose to go to Liverpool. Indy tweeted that Arne Slot had sold the Liverpool project over Microsoft Teams. And it was that little detail, you know, a meeting over Microsoft Teams, and then somebody came back and sort of mentioned it being a Zoom meeting, and he corrected them and said, no, it's Microsoft Teams. Now, whether he knows that or not, I don't know, but it's those little details that fans hang off, and Indy has a bit of fun with them. And if you just look at the amount of impressions he gets, there's a huge appetite for this kind of little blow-by-blow.
650,000 followers
Yeah.
on X. And you mentioned transfer gossip connoisseur.
Yeah.
And now he's breaking stories, because when he came onto the scene, it was almost a throwback to when it was just gossip, but it's kind of become a business on its own now, hasn't it? And he's feeding into that.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you know, as yourself, that transfers are the news that drives everything. You know, everyone wants to know who their club is going to sign, when they're going to sign him, has he arrived yet, has the private jet left the airport, are we tracking him on flight radar, all these weird things that have just developed. And you know, Indy Kaila is part of that kind of organism, I guess. But it's, I mean, I'd love for you to get him on the show. If he'd want to come on. I'm not sure how it would work with a silhouette on Zoom, but you know, it shows how the nature of football journalism has changed. You know, and of course he's going to mention a piece in a minute, Paul Hayward's done, but it's gone from being at match reporting on the game and what the manager said to every little nut and bolt of a transfer. And it's hard, as you know, it's hard to get everything right and to be first.
Yeah, I do think it's a fascinating piece. Listen, I really like Rory. Rory's such a good journalist and always thinking outside the box. Basically, he did something lovely actually towards the end of last season, I think, about Italian football kits of a classic era and a classic genre. And basically, it's such an interesting read in there, and almost about the new kind of thing. And fair play to Indy Kaila, because he's clearly seen a gap in the market, jumped on it early and benefited from that, and has grown from that. But the other piece I think is fascinating read
this one.
in the Observer. I mean, listen, Paul Hayward is one of my favourite people in the whole world, let alone the industry, and he's written an absolutely fantastic piece about sort of defending sort of kind of where we are within the industry, his passion for the game, his passion for journalism, his passion for match reporting, why it still has a place and why indeed football journalism and indeed the print media, which he's been such a bastion of over the years, is such an interesting read, and it's such a good read, and it sort of kind of almost emboldens you. I do think it's sort of kind of saying there, actually, it still has a place. I mean, I took such a sort of keen and enthusiastic one of our younger reporters to a game on he was with me on Friday night. He's there again with me on Fulham, and I basically sent him a message yesterday with the sort of kind of his name on the back page just to ensure that he's seen it, and he immediately came back and said, that's such a great buzz, and it remains the buzz, and of course we're moving in a different direction. You have to be absolutely naive not to realise that, but there's still such a buzz about seeing your name on the back page. Of course there is, and we are talking about newspapers, and I'm sort of an impassioned defender of that while moving into a new era. Basically, I sort of always enjoy doing, video and audio, love being part of this show, and that's exactly the point that Paul is making. We're moving into a brave new world, still impassioned about newspapers. Love it.